Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Parks Commission meeting. It's great to see everybody here. We're all mic'd, but they're not amplified. So if you can't hear us, raise your hand and we'll raise our voice. But thank you for coming. If we don't mind starting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lori, could we have a roll call? Here. Here.
Present.
We're at the public comment section. If anybody wants to speak on something that is not on the agenda, now's the time to do it, and there are speaker slips in the back. I have 2 speaker slips. And if this is it, the first one is Nancy Evans.
Where shall I go?
Is the microphone for Nancy?
Is there a microphone? Yes, yeah, right ahead.
Is it on? Okay. My name is Nancy Evans, and I live in El Granada. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I'm in opposition to the pump track to be built on the Murata Surf East Park in El Granada. Yesterday's Half Moon Bay Review quoted Nicholas Calderon, the park's director, saying that the pump track will be built on this site of the current track and will be up and running within 49 days, or weeks. This current pump track was built illegally, without permits, without environmental impact reports, without comments from the community, nor county approval of any kind. Not only is Murata Surf East a wetlands, it is also a highly flammable, dense eucalyptus forest, which surrounds the neighboring houses on 3 sides, making it a very dangerous place to put a significant recreational activity. I am not opposed to a pump track in El Granada. The pump track belongs in Quarry Park, where there are open fields, less fire hazards, public restrooms, a parking lot, picnic tables, and garbage bins. None of these amenities are available at Murata Surf East. I hope you will consider not putting the pump track in its current location.
Thank you for your comments. Can we comment on it? You can comment on something.
I can respond.
Yeah.
There was an error in the Half Moon Bay Review article. I noticed that today as well. The proposed location of the pump track is actually within Quarry Park proper and not on the Murata East property. So it is not proposed for where the illegal pump track is currently located. It would be more in the meadow area near where that courtyard is right now. So yeah, just for clarification purposes. As far as the location is concerned, we're still going out to engage with the public, but based on the conversations we've had with members of the community, that's the location. Very welcome.
And the next speaker is Neil Evans.
Well, I might be related to Nancy Evans, as you might guess. We've lived in El Granada for 40 years, so there must be something about it. Can you hear me?
It's for the recording.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. It's on.
What's on? Yeah, my name is Neil Evans. We live in El Granada and have lived there for about 40 years now. So as I said, there's something about it that we seem to like. I'm going to be redundant because Nancy, of course, has spoken about our criticism of an idea of having the pump track in Murata Surf, which we think is a terrible idea. I had a whole list of reasons why. You've already explained that it's not going to be there anyway, so I thank you for that. I also thank you. I had written a letter to you too, which you I hope you received. And I thank you for your criticism and opposition to the illegal law-breaking members of the community who busted into Marauder Surf, created their own existing, at the time, pump track, totally illegal. It struck me as being the French sort of marching on the barricades or something, basically. And so I thank you for doing that, and I thank you even more for, let's move this thing into Quarry Park where it belongs, for all the reasons Nancy mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment for something that's not on the agenda? If that's the case, then would anybody like to make a motion to set the agenda? Do we have any changes proposed for the agenda, or would you like to set it?
I'll make a motion to set the agenda that we have on it.
I second it. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, the agenda's set. And next we have the Parks Foundation Executive Director's report. Michelle?
And it's on. Good afternoon, park commissioners, park staff, and guests. My name is Michelle Beasley. I'm the executive director for the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. It's our mission to inspire people to care for, learn about, and enjoy San Mateo County Parks. And I'd also like to welcome you again to the Captain's House here at Coyote Point, because it's also where the Parks Foundation has our office in the back corner. And what I wanted to share with everyone today is that the San Mateo County Parks Foundation brought back and reinvigorated our volunteer group grant program, and also instituted a newer small grant program for the park rangers. And I wanted to share some of the highlights of what we decided to fund. We just released that money last month. So for example, we're helping the Friends of Edgewood improve the volunteer and visitor experience during their springtime wildflower walks, which are going to start in March. Just a little side note, it's always good to take pictures of wildflowers, but not in the wildflowers. We also are funding a project that San Bruno Mountain Watch is kicking off, which is bringing back a botanical garden at the entrance to San Bruno Mountain State and County Park. We really like this because it's all about creating community through an easily accessible landscape that can educate people about the unique flora of the mountain, as well as tell some of the cultural histories of the mountain. And then an example of a couple of the smaller projects that we funded for park rangers. We're very excited to support some native restoration of plants around the visitor centers at Memorial Park and San McDonald Park. And then we're also contributing a little bit of money to help repair the Lawler Ranch Road Bridge, which interestingly enough is not actually in a county park, but it is still on land that San Mateo County Parks is responsible for. So we were really happy to help do a little bit of work around this equestrian connection. So just wanted to share some highlights with our revamped grant program. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to entertain it now or after the meeting. And yeah, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say thank you, Michelle, for putting out that in your letter that you sent out in your email. Yeah, it mentioned this meeting and getting people here for the dog meeting. So thank you for doing that.
Michelle, I had a question. So I'm in District 5. San Bruno is part of my area, and I would love to have our constituents and just people outside the district to really take advantage. Although San Bruno Mountains can get a bit foggy sometimes, we're hoping that if you have it probably on a Saturday or any days. Yeah. Just kind of in the spring when you know the sun is out and people want to take advantage of this, and you know we welcome everybody from all districts to come to San Bruno Mountains.
Yes, we love leading hikes at San Bruno Mountains, so we'll do more of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for the director's report. Nicholas Calderon.
Yeah, in the interest of time, to make sure we have plenty of time to discuss the upcoming items, I'll keep it very brief. I wanted to provide the Commission and public with an update on the Flood Park project, which had come to the Commission some time ago, and at the end of last year, it was presented to the board for consideration, and the board asked the department to go back to the drawing board with regards to a specific feature, and that was the soccer lacrosse field along the backyard fence of Del Norte. And so The department's working to relocate some of these amenities to locations that are more accommodating to some of the concerns expressed during the board's public testimony. And so the goal will be to bring that back to the board, hopefully in a March, April timeframe. And we'll make sure that we inform the commission of what occurred at that board meeting at that time, given that the commission had recommended that the board certify the EIR and adopt the landscape plan. That's really the main issue I wanted to bring up. With that said, there are a variety of updates in the director's report that I'd be happy to answer any questions for the commission, should there be any.
Anybody? On the flood park soccer field, will that come back to us? Will we see that, or will it go directly to the Board of Supervisors?
In the interest of time, we're going to bring it directly to the board,
Okay.
which was kind of the direction we were given, is to relocate these amenities, but get it back to the board as quickly as possible. But I would be happy to include a future agenda item with what the landscape plan is and what the changes were. The amenities within the landscape plan are not changing. It's just where they're located. So I'd be happy to bring that back to the commission.
You don't have to bring it back for me, but that was very controversial. The siting of the soccer field was very controversial in Flood Park, and a lot of people showed up for that meeting. And if you don't have it here at the Parks Commission, it may be that a lot of people will show up at the supervisor meeting. So pick your poison. Anyway, we can have it here if you have time.
Absolutely, thank you.
And I have one thing on that. I can remember clear as day, Mr. Calderon, director, that at our, I'm not sure if I chaired that meeting or not, but we had, and as Commissioner Merrill said, I've never seen our chambers, with over 150, from parents to coaches to citizens to folks that live in the neighborhood to folks who are homeowners. Addressing their concerns. So maybe you can probably expand on that, not into length, because within the interest of time that we have a lot of things on the agenda today.
Would you like me to expand on kind of what the project is? Or?
No, we know about what the project is, just kind of like what might it entail, just kind of like if we got the clear path of what it looks like, within the next few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if the revised landscape plan, if it's determined that the revised landscape plan has no new environmental impacts, then the existing EIR would be sufficient and adequate for certification. And so we would present that to the board for certification, and the goal would be to do that in that March-April timeframe. If the board were to certify it in that March-April timeframe, then we'd be releasing an RFP for a design firm to come in and do essentially a year-long design process of what the detailed plans would be. And that's going to include the subsurface utilities, the details as to the specific locations of all amenities, the size of the fields, everything. And then what we'll be doing is dividing that into 3 phases. Then we'll start the construction process of that. So, so we're looking at a year-long design and then design permitting phase, and then we'll start construction as soon as that's
It'd be a while for a ground break. Be quite some time if it all our ducks in a row.
Yeah, once we advertise the bid, select the contractor, get into contract, and they are able to mobilize and get on site, I would assume from today we're looking at an 18 to 24-month process.
Okay.
Through the chair, so are there any time constraints that are dictating the fact that the item is not going to come back to the commission to review, at least for us to determine that, given the number of people that did come to the meeting and complain, at least for the commission to determine that their concerns have truly been met by the new design?
Yeah, primarily the direction I received from the Board of Supervisors to bring it back as soon as possible.
Okay.
Is your report online, Nicholas? Can people see it? Nicholas does a report for every meeting, the director's report, and it's got lots of great items that have to do with what's going on in the parks, which is a massive amount of stuff. And they even have wildlife cams with pictures of mountain lions. And so anyway, go online and look at his report. It's very interesting. And our chair, Heather, is here now, so she's going to take over the meeting.
Hi, folks. And so I understand we just concluded action. Can you point me where we are?
Yeah, we're just starting the regular
Right,
agenda.
starting the regular agenda. Thank you. So I'm calling item 7.1, approval of the December 5th, 2019 Parks and Rec Commission meeting minutes. If you take a moment to review those, they're in your packet here. And if anyone has a motion.
I'm fine with approving them. I'll make a motion that we approve them.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No
Aye.
objection. That motion passes. Thank you. Item 7.2, amendment to Article 9 of the Parks and Rec Commission bylaws, which is an action item. Do you want to walk us through what we're?
Yeah, happy to. So, the existing commission bylaws dictate that the commission bylaws dictate that existing commission meetings are on the first Thursday of every even month, and they are to be located at the Board of Supervisors chambers at 400 County Center. And so, in order to and due to a scheduling conflict with another board and commission at the county, the commission made the decision to move the commission meetings from the board chambers to locations within the parks. So for the next year, all of 2020, we will be meeting within the parks. And in order to allow that to occur, there needs to be an amendment of the bylaws that allows the commission to adopt an ordinance, or I'm sorry, adopt a resolution that dictates where the meetings will be for that calendar year. And so in order for us to take action on that resolution, we have to first be able to amend the bylaws to authorize you to do that. So it's kind of a two-step process, and that's what 7.2 and 7.3 are.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners or comments?
I love it.
I love it too.
I love it.
Beats
I'd
going
rather
down to
be
Redwood
here.
City, beats going down to worrying about leaving the building and getting locked out. And
Great. That is good. Okay, wonderful. General endorsement. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, can I take a motion?
I move that we move to approve the change in the bylaws.
Second that.
Second, no objection. Seeing none, that passes. Item 7.3, as you said, related, establishing the 2020 Parks and Rec Commission meeting schedule. Do we have a handout about that, or do you?
It's
In the packet? Thank you. Sorry, I did not memorize that packet. Oh, this is the director's report. Thank you. So just so folks are aware, it's so great to do this when we have so many people here. So 7.3, establishment of the schedule. Do we have the dates and locations? Just want to read those out. So we have our current meeting, April 2nd, to be held 4 to 6 p.m., also held here at the Captain House at Coyote Point. On June 4th at the Carriage House at Wunderlich Park. August 6th, also at the Carriage House at Wunderlich. October 1st, San Pedro Valley Park Visitor Center. And December 3rd, San Pedro Valley Park Visitor Center. And these will all be posted on our website and noticed appropriately. So with that, can I take a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
I want a question.
Oh, yes, question,
I
please.
got a couple of questions.
I
Oh, yeah,
take my
comment.
motion back.
Right.
Yeah, rescind the motion and comments from commissioners and questions.
You know, given the level of interest that we have on commission matters today, it's clear that this is not adequate space. To have a meeting. There are people that are actually standing outside, and since the meeting is not amplified, so I'm not even clear that they're able to hear what it is that we are talking about. So, I'd like to suggest that we probably hold off on this until we really can find a sizable enough space that can accommodate people so that they can hear, the commission's deliberation. And I understand, it's not like we have 1,000 facilities that we can choose from. And I also understand that not all our commission meetings are as well attended. But this is certainly the hope that all our commission meetings get well attended, and if they are, we should be prepared with a sizable room.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the captain's house where we are right now is going to be undergoing some audio-visual improvements, which should accommodate at least the technological concern that was raised. The space constraint is clearly something that we can't change. With regards to the carriage house and the San Pedro Valley Visitor Center. San Pedro Valley Visitor Center is significantly larger and would be able to hold a larger crowd, and the captain's house would be able to accommodate approximately the same as the captain's house. So I think that the size is going to be pretty consistent as far as physical space available, but we will obviously make sure that the audio-visual improvements are made at each of the future facilities, as well as this one for the next meeting, if that's approved.
Then
Also,
through the chair, could I suggest perhaps we can adopt this, but let's keep our options open, because I'm sure there are a myriad of other facilities, some which the cities around in San Mateo County may own. They may be willing to make them available, but I think we need to stay hopeful that every meeting we have is going to have this many people.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners?
We hope that it has this many people. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And why don't we amend the bylaws and schedule these meetings? And in the meantime, let's think about creating a new community center over on the Mid-Coast.
Wonderful idea.
Just something to think about.
Just something to ponder.
Something to ponder.
Any further comments from commissioners? Seeing none, do we have public comment on this item? Saw a hand.
Well, I just wanted to suggest for a possible location option, the San Mateo County Library, or San Mateo Library on 3rd and El Camino. There's many meetings there, and it's large rooms.
Thank you.
And the Board of Supervisors chambers is larger too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and so there was, due to a scheduling conflict is why the commission decided to move it out of the board chambers and into the parks. So.
Thank you.
So
Okay, do I have a
we
motion?
approve
Motion
the
to
new
approve.
schedule.
I second it.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing none, that passes. Item 7.4. Thank you for coming. Off-leash dog access policy recommendation.
I'm gonna go ahead and stand up by the screen for this one.
Take the mic.
Oh, I'll bring that too.
Yeah. Coffee.
I'm gonna want this. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know this is the primary item everyone's here for, and so my name is Nicholas Calderon. I'm Parks Director here at the County of San Mateo, and actually happy to say that that regal-looking, cute little guy is actually my dog in Quarry Park just last weekend. So, I too am a user of our parks with my little buddy. So, just wanted to start with that. So,
Warming up the crowd, are you?
we'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of presentation left. So back in 2018, the Board of Supervisors amended the county ordinance code to recognize or to legally recognize dog recreation within county parks. And during that meeting, the board also directed the department to develop a recommendation for a pilot program to expand on-leash recreation, and then also to develop a recommendation for off-leash dog recreation. And so tonight we'll be focusing on that latter one, which is the off-leash recreation. The department wanted to make sure that whatever recommendation gets developed is one that was done through an inclusive, open, transparent process. And so in order to have that done, the Parks Dog Pilot Project Work Group was created. And this is a list of the members who were on it, but it was comprised of 2 members of the Parks Commission, 3 park rangers, a member or a representative of the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council, as well as the Mid-Coast Community Council, and the dog owner, the equestrian, mountain bike, and environmentalist community. And you'll see some members have an asterisk at the end of their name. And what that means is those individuals were involved from this process years and years and years ago when we first started the dog management committee all the way through this. And I think it started 2016, maybe 2017. So these members have dedicated a lot of time and a lot of effort to this, but the entire work group deserves credit for the work that they did and the recommendation that they put forth. So the process of of the work group was that they held monthly meetings, and the monthly meetings were open to the public, and the public was able to provide comment either during the meeting or submit comments via email before the meetings. And all the notes and agendas from those meetings are online, so if you're interested in going back and reviewing that, you'd be able to do so. But at the end, the work group came up with a recommendation for the department. And the understanding was that the work group would inform the department on what they'd like to see for a recommendation, and the department would take that into consideration and have to develop a recommendation that will then be presented to the commission and to the board of supervisors eventually. And so tonight I will explain both the work group's recommendation and the department's recommendation. So first, the work group recommended that there be 2 pilot project locations, and it'd be Quarry Park and Pillar Point Bluff. And it'd be for a 12-month period. And as you can see here, the green trails are where off-leash dog recreation would be allowed. And the orange trails are where you would have to keep your dog on leash. And the reason those trails in orange were designated so is because they were either adjacent to sensitive resources or they were very narrow. And so with a very narrow trail, you have an increased risk of having some type of user conflict. So once again, green is where off-leash would be allowed. Orange is where your dog would have to be on leash. And then there are 2 areas where dogs wouldn't be allowed, and that's within the reservoir and then within the playground. At Pillar Point Bluff, the work group had a lot of conversations about this and really went back and forth on if this should be a pilot program or a pilot location or not, and came to the conclusion that through a majority vote that it was to be a location. And once again, the green shows where the work group recommended dogs should be allowed off leash, and the orange is where dogs would be allowed on leash. Now, to ensure that the pilot program is successful and has an opportunity to be successful, the work group adopted a series of policies that the work group felt would help guide this program and guide users to make sure that we at San Mateo County Parks are able to provide a safe, welcoming, and enjoyable experience for everyone. And so the work group first said that off-leash dogs must be under voice and sight control. And they felt it was important to define what that means. And so voice and sight control means the owner handler must be in control of the dog at all times and be able to recall and leash the dog at any time. They also felt that it was important, in order to do that, you have to have a leash readily available at all times. But then they also felt that it was important that you have the ability to immediately recall your dog. And that they put a 10-second return time on that. And there was a lot of discussion around the difference between respond and recall. So for example, I will call my dog, his name's Dutcher, and he's 7 months old. He'll stop and look at me, but he doesn't always come to me. And that's a response, but that's not a recall. So you have to be able to have your dog come back to you within that 10-second time frame. It was also determined that dogs must remain on designated trails within view and earshot. You have to have sight of your dog, and your dog has to be able to hear you. And there was a lot of conversation as to how far away can your dog get if it's off leash, and the work group landed on 25 feet. Dogs must also be leashed in developed areas, and this is really primarily for the safety of the dogs. Parking lots, by roadways, picnic areas. So we really wanted to make sure that we were also putting measures in place to protect the dogs. The work group recommended no more than 2 dogs off leash, and there's a lot of conversation about that, and that was that you can't really verbally control more than 2 dogs at any given time. The work group also felt that it was important to define what it means for your dog not to be under control. And so what it means for your dog, based on the recommendation not to be under control, is to threaten, harass, or chase other animals or wildlife, to display threatening behavior, physically harm people directly or indirectly by their actions, or engage, jump, run into, touch other people who haven't invited that behavior. Also, not recall when called. Then policy number 6 was one that the work group had a lot of conversations on. And the language they landed on was dogs must be under control at all times and leashed up whenever necessary for the safety and or comfort of other park users or protection of sensitive resources.
Can I ask a question before you move over? Is that possible?
Sure. I can't say no. What do you got?
Well, you could.
I-
I'm just, what is your definition of indirectly? What do you think that means?
Can I address that when I give the department's recommendation? Cool. Thank you. And so then the work group also felt that it was important to have a way to evaluate what is a successful pilot program. At the end of the day, a pilot program is a test, and how do you know if the test passes or fails? And so the work group came up with a whole evaluation that looks at the vegetation and the wildlife and the water quality and the visitor interactions and the user experience and signage and how do we gauge what type of impact this is having on the park and the users. And so the work group recommended that the department have an evaluation criteria. So the work group made this recommendation on the 13th of, finalized this recommendation on the 13th of January, and the department provided its recommendation. So now I'll walk you through the department's recommendation, and you'll see highlights, and the highlights represent areas in which the department's recommendation differs from the work group's recommendation. And so the department agreed that the pilot would be Quarry and Pillar Point Bluff, and it would be for a 12-month period, and so we agree with the work group on that. You will see that this map looks slightly different. Due to the CAL FIRE fuel reduction project that was done recently, some of these single-track narrow trails have actually been opened up, and therefore those trails would now be available to off-leash dogs. So with regards to Quarry Park, there are more trails available to off-leash dogs in the department's recommendation than in the work group recommendation based on that project that was done. At Pillar Point Bluff, there's a slight difference, and that is on the Ross's Cove Trail. And the department's recommendation is that on the Ross's Cove Trail and Pillar Point Bluff, on leash, the rest of the trails are off leash. We also agreed that there needed to be a set of policies that govern the behavior. And so we agreed that off-leash dogs must be under voice and sight control. And as you can tell, A, B, and C are, with an exception of rewording maximum of 10-second return time and adding an S at the end of dogs, our recommendation is the same with that as the work group. Voice and sight control means the owner or handler must be in control of the dogs at all time and be able to recall and leash the dog when necessary. They must have a leash, and the dog must return when called. We agree dogs must remain on designated and signed trails. So part of the department's effort is education and information, and we put a priority on that. And what that means is adequate signage to inform people. So we want to make sure that where dogs are allowed off leash, we're signing it and we're informing people. But we also agree no more than 25 feet away. Dogs must be on leash in developed areas. We agree for the safety of the dogs that dogs need to be on leash when you're near parking lots or near roadways. And we agree no more than 2 dogs per person off leash.
Can I ask a question about the 10-second rule?
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you can define the 10-second rule. Does it mean as soon as you call your dog for the first time, they have to be able to be leashed within 10 seconds? Part of your
Yeah, and I'm happy to get inside in more. I'll get inside in more detail as well. Yeah. So, dog recommendation. What does it mean to not be in control of your dog? Threaten, harass, chase, or otherwise display aggression towards any person, animal, or wildlife. Aside from that, highlight exactly the same language as the work group. Display threatening behavior, physically harm people directly or indirectly, touch or jump on other people that when not invited, and not returning when called. And so, what it means for direct or indirect, I think it's pretty clear what a direct, what physically harming someone directly would mean. Indirectly is if your dog is running around, not listening, and takes someone out under the legs. That would be an indirect, right? The dog was not lunging at someone. They were not intentionally jumping on this person, but they still ended up hurting this person. And I've seen it happen. I'm sure many of you have as well. it not only is it dangerous, I can speak from experience, it's pretty painful. So that's what that means. And 10 seconds, when you're asked to recall your dog, a ranger's not going to sit there with a stopwatch and time. And when we ask that there's a 10-second maximum return time, I think we're all clear on, there's a big difference between 10 seconds and your dog takes off running, or 20 seconds or 30 seconds, right? I mean, this really comes down to, is your dog recalling when you call it? I think that's the biggest thing. And if your dog is capable of recalling when you call it, and you're keeping your dog within that 25 feet, the 10 seconds shouldn't be an issue. Now, if your dog's not capable of recalling when you call it, and your dog is 100 feet down trails, that 10 seconds isn't going to be possible. And that's where we're going to be having conversations. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. The last one is owner handler must have physical control of the dog when approaching or being approached by park users not also engaged in off-leash dog recreation. When you look at other parks in San Mateo County, I think the one that comes to mind, for me at least, is always Pulgas Ridge here on the Bayside. You can actually route a hike through Pulgas Ridge. If you are not comfortable with dogs, if you do not have a dog and you want to go there and have a hike, you can route a hike through Pulgas Ridge where you never go through that off-leash dog area. You can loop it so that you never have that encounter. And the way we've set these pilot programs up, you don't have that opportunity at Quarry, and you don't have that opportunity at Pillar Point Bluff. There is no way to go into those parks and not be in an off-leash area. And so what that means is, for the comfort of other people, you have to have control of that dog if someone's approaching you. And I think as dog owners, I see many of you with the shirts on, and I'm going to assume most everyone here is a dog owner. When you're walking your dog out, whether it's on leash or off leash, and you see someone who's approaching you, and that person clearly is not comfortable with dogs, is giving your dog a weird look, you already bring that dog back, right? I mean, this is really in line with what common practice is for dog owners today. There's no difference of what's being asked and what people are doing. It's a common courtesy thing, and it's how most of us already do it. It's now just being written down. The department agrees that there needs to be an evaluation criteria, and so we agree with the work group's evaluation criteria, with the exception that the work group wanted to see weekly or monthly evaluations of what's going on with the habitat and the wildlife. We don't really have the capacity to be out there monitoring on a weekly or a monthly basis. More importantly, a quarterly basis will allow us to get the same understanding of what the changes are. And our natural resource team has been involved in this process from the beginning. They're committed to doing that monitoring and making sure that we understand what is going on in our parks. The other thing is that we're still having conversations on, and it's not included here, and we're still talking about our survey. So during our on-leash pilot, there were user surveys, and we're having conversations as to whether we'll be bringing that back as well. So really there are two differences between the work group recommendation and the department recommendation. There is this language in front of us where the work group said dogs must be under control at all times and leashed whenever necessary for the safety and comfort of other park users or protection of sensitive resources. The department's owner handler must have physical control of the dog. You can read it. Sorry, I'm losing my breath here. So
Nicholas, I think you should read it out because not everyone can see the screen. Take a breath.
Yeah. So owner handler must have physical control of dogs when approaching or being approached by park users not also engaged in off-leash dog recreation. And that goes back to what I was saying, which is our parks need to be made available to everyone. And at the end of the day, that's why we're here today, right? I mean, that's why we're here tonight, is because San Mateo County parks should be accessible to everyone. And there's a group of people who have not always had legal access into our parks, and the board changed that in 2018, and we're taking another step in this process to further changing that to make sure that this user group has access to our parks. We want to make sure that everyone continues to have access to our parks. And so we want to make sure that people are comfortable and that people feel safe in our parks and welcoming, and that we really are able to enjoy our parks as a community, and that's what this is about. The other difference is the Ross's Cove Trail, and this is one that the work group had a lot of conversations back and forth on, and at the end, they agreed that their recommendation would have this be Ross's Cove Trail. Between this right here, they wanted that off-leash, and because of the amount of informal and formal access paths from the bluffs to the beach, the department is not comfortable making that off-leash, and we need to protect the sensitive resources. We need to be protecting the marine life on the beach, and I think it's very reasonable to have your dog on leash there. It's too easy for a dog to get away from its owner and get down on the beach before the owner can respond and get a hold of the dog, and so that's why the department's recommendation is the way it is. As I started back in 2018, the Board of Supervisors started to change the county ordinance code with regards to dog recreation. And so here's a summary of what they did. These are still going to be in force. So they were originally drafted with regards to having your dog on a leash, but there are certain provisions in here that are not related to that have no bearing on whether your dog's on leash or off leash. Everyone's responsible for complying, and primarily that is your dog must be licensed. It must be wearing a collar with its license. Your dog must, or you must pick up after your dog's waste and either throw it in a trash can or take it out of the park. And that violators will be subject to an infraction. The rest of this is still built in. Dogs also need to be on designated and signed areas. So it's important to note that this section is not going away. It's still in force. It's just being revised to accommodate off-leash dogs in designated and signed areas.
That says 3 dogs.
So what the county did was the county said you're allowed to have no more than 3 dogs per person on leash. And what we've determined is that you can have up to 2 dogs off leash. So what that means is you could have 2 dogs off leash and 1 dog on leash. But you can't have all 3 dogs off leash, and you can't have more than 3 dogs with you in the park. There's another one that I wanted to raise, and that is the department had originally recommended that should someone be chronically violating the rules or doing something egregious, that they can be removed from the park and their dog could be removed from the park by a ranger. And at that meeting, the dog community said that it was not fair that they were essentially having an ordinance against them that no one else had. And I agree. You were absolutely right. And so we changed it. And so what we felt is that everyone needs to be held to the same standard. Whether you are a hiker, a walker, a runner, a biker, an equestrian, someone walking their dog, or someone just coming into the park to enjoy, you have to protect the resources, and you have an obligation as a member of the public to steward the land on behalf of future generations. And so this language will be added to the county ordinance code.
Does that include people who litter, like leave their human waste, or drug paraphernalia, or condoms, or food wrappers, or I mean, if I see people doing that, do I call the ranger?
Yes,
ask them to be
absolutely,
removed?
absolutely.
Excellent.
I mean, because people should not be. I believe you said needles.
Well, drug paraphernalia, human feces, condoms.
Yeah, people should not be doing that in our
food
parks.
wrappers, bottles.
Yeah, look,
any
food wrappers,
number of
those
things.
food wrappers and bottles are things that people should obviously know. You're not allowed to do that, and we work very hard to keep our parks clean, and you shouldn't be doing that. But drugs and human waste and those things should absolutely be reported to the department. I've never seen it. I believe you 100%. I believe you 100%.
Yeah.
We have 16,000 acres, so yeah, we got a lot. But if you see that, please absolutely call the
Do
department.
you want me to take a picture and send it to you?
No.
I don't know if that's necessary.
If you can give us a general sense as to where it is, and if that would be helpful. But yeah.
No, I say that because you really are picking on people with dogs.
But that's why. But this isn't right. So what
The
what I'm
wording
saying
isn't,
is,
but you are actually. But that's
but see,
go ahead,
I would
please go ahead.
disagree, because what this means is if someone is doing something illegal with their mountain bike or their horse, they're going to be.
I'm sorry, if we could
they're
just
going to
hold
be-
this for public comment,
course,
all
I
members of the
apologize.
public
They're
are
going to be
entitled to the
removed as
same
well.
amount of time.
Sorry, I apologize.
So, so that's what this ordinance is for. Environmental review. So after extensive conversations with legal counsel, we've determined that we need to do a CEQA review for this, and so we have already started that. So we're in contract with someone, and we're doing the initial study right now, and that initial study is going to tell us if there will be no adverse effects or if we need to do further review. So we're hoping to have that here in the next couple of months, and that will really shine some light on what the next steps are and what the actual time frame will be. But once we've satisfied that, we'll be able to apply for our coastal development permit in order to get in order to comply with our local coastal program, and those two steps will have to go one after the other. And then this is kind of the general time frame as to process that we're looking at. So the work group made their recommendation. They presented it to the department. The department crafted its recommendation. We'll be presenting it here or we did present it here tonight. And then, once we have the CEQA completed, we'll be bringing it to our Board of Supervisors. Great question. So this is the approximate timeline. So May is when we're looking to bring that to the board, but that is really all contingent on how quickly we can get the CEQA done and how quickly we can obtain our coastal development permit. With that said, that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
We'll take questions and comments from commission, and then open it up for public comment. Thank you for that.
Yeah, the last thing I'd say is, if you when you come up to speak, I'll leave the microphone right here. Sorry, a minute. I'll leave it right here. You can ask your questions here, and then that way everything can be properly captured on the camera. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have questions or comments from commissioners?
I truly appreciate, through the chair, I truly appreciate the work that has gone into this. I appreciate everybody that has been involved. And I'd really like to defer my comments to Neil Miroles, who's been involved with it since.
Could you speak up, please?
I'd really like to defer my comments to Neil, who's been involved with this endeavor from 2015 or 2016. But I just needed to take some time to applaud everybody, that has been engaged in this process, and to really applaud them for their sense of compromise, because I think there were a variety of positions that people had to come to a middle ground, painfully, but it, it's good that it did happen. And in situations such as this one, of course, there are always going to be some leftover, feelings of opposition or feelings of dislike and so on and so forth. I'm hoping, certainly, that having these kinds of conversations, those issues will get resolved.
Also, through the chair, I want to echo what Commissioner Mehta has to say. Nothing but kind words for Neil and those that worked on obviously this took some thought out time and process, and to our new director, Nicholas Calderon, for a wonderful presentation. But it goes without saying that Neil, through all his work on his off time, and not necessarily even during the commission meetings, but just this took some time. I mean, and granted that not everybody's going to be pleased, but what Commissioner Mariles and his team on this access channel through the community and through folks that had their hands in the cookie jar with this goes without saying. So great job on this one. Neil, congratulations on accomplishing something really big.
I wanted to say thank you to everybody that has been coming to the meetings. This process started 3 years ago under a different parks director and has continued through 5 parks directors. And I don't think we would be at this point now without you coming and showing your support and kind of pushing us to make it happen through all the different all the different situations and administrations that we've been in. So thank you. It's always great to see people show up at meetings like this. This is a compromise. I would really strongly recommend that that the work groups wording make it to the Board of Supervisors, at least to show them what we were thinking, that when people come and spend years of their time and take a day off to come to a meeting like this again and again and again, I think the input is very valuable. And that the wording that we came up with was a compromise between the environmental community and the equestrian community and rangers that were participating. So yeah, it did not come out of a group of pro-dog, crazies. It came out of, it was a compromise between many different many different sides, and we took everybody's opinion into consideration. So I really strongly recommend that we at least let the Board of Supervisors see that language. I think it's very important what we have done with the community. So yeah, thank you to everybody. At this point, hopefully we'll have a 1-year-long trial for this, and we'll have to be on our best behavior, and we'll have to trust the Parks Department to work with everybody in a cooperative way. And I am totally thinking that it's all going to work out, and this will be the start of something good. And if it works, maybe we can do this in other places in the park. So thank you very much for all your input.
Thank you.
Chair Green, I had one more. I want to direct this, maybe just keep it very simple, to our chair, Nicholas Calderon. So let's say you have those who are not dog friendly, who don't like, not to say they dislike animals, allergic, they're scared, elderly. Are there some of those trails where they say, look, I don't want to see a single pet in my sight. I just want to go and walk and take a breath of fresh air and just...
There's 14 different parks.
How many acres do we
Sorry,
have?
if you can just reserve
16,000 acres.
heckling and comments for public comment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying
Yeah, Commissioner.
The question is to the director.
Commissioners,
address that to the director.
So yeah, there are other opportunities within the San Mateo County Park System where an individual would be able to hike without having that concern.
Just putting it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no other comments from commissioners. I'm eager to hear all the public comments. So what I'll do is call out the first handful of names, and if you want to try to line up over by the side and grab the mic that's over by Commissioner O'Kello, I have Peter Griffin, Michael Kuhn, Mary Larkunas, Lorenas, I'm so sorry, and Brigitte Bauer. Can we start there?
Yeah, so 2 minutes.
Yes, as we line up. Are you first? Yes, so I will just let everyone line up. And then, so each public comment is held to 2 minutes. So everyone has the same opportunity to speak in the spirit of fairness. I'll ask our attorney to who will be watching.
Carla will live.
Carla will watch the clock. So Carla's over there. Carla, if you could please just raise your hand at 30. If you could raise your hand at 30 seconds for folks so you know you're getting close.
So I'm Peter Griffin. I've attended most of the work group meetings. Even with these additions to the parks, San Mateo County Parks will only have 5% that are available to people on leash or off leash. And there are 40% of households that own a dog, so it means getting into a car, driving someplace. Compared with 90% access in Marin and in the East Bay, those are very environmentally conscious communities. I would hope that we could do better here. During the meetings, the Parks Department was largely, I would say, obstructionist. They voted in today's terms as a partisan bloc until one young ranger sort of broke the log jam, and then it was great to see everybody unanimously come on board for the final recommendation. And I think part of that may have been not having an active parks director. So I'm hoping that with the right leadership, you can please the supervisors and please the dog owners in the future for fair access. There is still one problem, I think, with the actual ordinance language, and I want you to picture this: an older person shuffling along the trail with their older dog trailing behind them. That behavior is ticketable now, and it shouldn't be. That language is in the actual ordinance. I would like to see that language removed so that doesn't happen. Thank you very much.
Was there a question about the nature of public comment just before you go?
I didn't turn in a sheet, can I ask questions?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We'll just get through the sheets, and then anybody else is welcome to comment. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Kühn. And the provision for guidelines for off-the-leash dogs do not seem to be plausible or practical for that matter. Having to leash the dogs every time when encountering park users with or without dogs end up to be equivalent of keeping dogs on leash all time. Walking the trails, one constantly crosses with others, and the leash on and off exercise becomes an unfeasible burden. We think it's not asking for too much for having the right to walk the dogs off leash in these two very restricted areas of the Quarry Park and the Bluffs, especially taking into account the vast extension of coastside areas open to the public, however restricted to dogs and consequently to dogs owners as well. The removal of these further restrictive limitations would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Can they announce their names? They haven't spoken their names. Introduce them.
I noticed. I'm Mary Lorenis. I live in Moss Beach. My husband and I have been walking our dogs on and off leash on the bluffs for 25-something years. One of my big concerns is that dogs would still be getting down onto the beach at Ross's Cove and along that whole area where the tide pools are, where the seals haul out. So I'm personally very happy and appreciate the fact that that is going to be blocked off. Dogs on leash only. I know people will not like having that one section that goes along the bluff as dogs on leash only. But I'm also thinking of the fact when I had to wear a knee brace for a year, have an artificial knee. I was mobility impaired, and I needed to be able to walk and enjoy the sunset and the ocean without fear of falling or animals coming up to me. So in my heart, I want to make sure, and I'm going to focus on Pillar Point Bluff, that there are places on Pillar Point Bluff where people who are not comfortable with dogs, who are mobility impaired, have little kids, whatever, can walk without concern of dogs coming up to them. And I think that's been addressed because they'll have that beautiful area right along Ross's Cove and also in the very beginning. Darn, and I had one other thing. To think of it? Okay.
I like your points, though.
Okay, 2 dogs walk on the bluff, and then comes a rain. That's a joke. I don't remember what it is, but if I remember what it is, I'll let you know. But anyway, thank you for the compromise. Thank you for everybody working on it. Thank you for all the dog people being here and working this out. And I'll hand it over. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. Just next up after this person, Christine Corwin, Vicky Boyd, Jan Carroll, and Chris Johnson. And then after that, we can line up on the side there. Thank you.
Through the chair, could I ask a question of legal? Could they announce their names since this thing is...
Can't require that.
Is that necessary?
Can't.
You can't require.
You are welcome to announce your name if you would like.
Okay, hi, I'm Birgitta Bauer. I live in El Granada with a 14-year-old dog. And actually, I was going to talk about that Roscoe thing because I couldn't quite understand it since, you're having the rule of the 10 seconds and the 25 feet. And wherever I've seen, it's 2 access places to Roscoe, and it's very long, and there's big signs. So I've never been down there with a dog because I couldn't miss it. So, but I mean, I appreciate your points that, but I don't know. I mean, if you have those rules, it feels like you're putting something on top of it that, they're not supposed to be able to get down there with the rules. So it's like, but I mean, usually the thing is that, for us, you're taking something away because things have been working there for, for always. So this thing that you're giving us something isn't really what we feel in our hearts. So that's why it's very hard to get down to all these rules. And there was also something, Christine, this thing about the dog has to be, the dog has to be in front of you. Was that a thing or not? That when you have your dog off-leash, it can't be behind you?
Yeah, your dog has to be,
Let's just,
yeah,
you do
sorry.
your comments
I'll
and
address everything at the end.
Because, when I walk my dog, which I can't now anymore because she's too old, but a dog sniffs. And the point of off-leash dog walking is I get some exercise too because I can walk, but the dog will sniff, it will run up to me, back to me, it will sniff, that's how you get along. So it's not like, I have to stop when the dog sniffs again. That's sort of, it feels like that's not normal dog off-leash walking.
Thank you. That's time.
It's fine. Okay.
What kind of dog do you have? Golden Retriever.
No. It's a mixed cattle dog and German Shepherd. She's a beauty from a shelter.
Hi, my name is Christine Corwin, and I'm with Coastside Dog of San Mateo County. And as Nicholas said, I served on the dog work group and the dog management committee. And we're now entering our 4th year of this process. So I prepared a bunch of remarks. Of course, now I'm tossing them aside. And I'm just going to speak to kind of what I've heard. So during the presentation, everyone needs to be held to the same standard. Our parks need to be welcoming for everyone. Right now we have a situation where our parks are not welcoming for everyone. Dog owners only have access to 8% of trails within county park system. It used to be 5%, but because of the 2 on-leash pilots, it's now gone up to 8%. So there's 92% of the trails where there's no dogs allowed. And so that's where these people can go if they don't care for dogs. Pillar Point Bluff and Pillar Point Bluff and Quarry Park, people have been walking their dogs under voice control forever up there. It's part of our way of life on the coast. People are responsible. I walk out there every single day. Our dog owners out there are really considerate. We're environmental stewards. The reason why these parks are clean, the reason why the new director may have not seen all the things that this woman was talking about is because we're picking that stuff up. We're cleaning our parks. And so we compromised up and down on this, and we realized that the county, this is something new for our county. It's not new in every other county. Every other county pretty much has voice control. So compromised as a group, there are 2 things that we cannot compromise on. One is the dog in front of you language that was been brought up just because it doesn't make any sense. To heel a dog is the dog's behind you. And then the other one is my time up? Okay. Well, this is pretty important.
Finish your sentence.
I don't know. The other one is that, and I was a bit disappointed that we didn't have an ordinance language presentation. because it's different. The ordinance language is going to be codified.
So please do finish your thought.
Okay, the other thing, the ordinance says on designated trails where off-leash dogs are permitted, each off-leash dog shall be restrained and or leashed by the owner or handler when encountering other park users with no dogs or with leash dogs. And we're totally fine. People leash up around leash dogs. That's not, but that is not a voice control dog walking area. If you have to leash up anytime you see anyone, that's not. And no other park district has that. Every other park district just has dogs have to be under control.
I'm so sorry you're over time. I have to ask you to
but
pass along. Yes, all the members of the public
I've spent so many hours on
I
this
hear you, and I
years of my
appreciate
life.
it. Thank you.
But we can't compromise on that because that's not voice control dog walking, and we want this to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, when I wrote this, I admit it's a little bit harsh, and after listening to Mr. Calderon, you are a welcome, refreshing change to the representative before you, and I really appreciate that, and I feel like it's going to help everybody. And Commissioner Okello, I appreciate your comment that you need a bigger room, because you do. I'm ready to pass out because I've been standing in the back, and I have diabetes, so a bigger room with more chairs would be great. Anyway, to the point, and this is going to be harsh because it was written before I didn't have the reception of hearing what you had to say, which was very informative. So the objective of attending the San Mateo County off-leash meetings for 2+ years is to get our dogs the required level of exercise they need, as well as fulfill their mental stimulation and natural being of a dog. By placating us with your provision of restraining, leashing our dogs upon encountering park users with leashed or no dogs is not only unrealistic, it prohibits the original intent and presents complications to enforce. Regarding the secondary provision for off-leash dogs to remain no more than 25 feet in front of an owner, it is fair to say the author of this clause has rewritten a new edition of the Emperor's New Clothes within a visible, whether it be a visible 25-foot leash or in this case invisible 25-foot leash, the outcome is the same, restricted mobility. Why this is taking so long and being made so complicated when our surrounding counties, as well 2 parks within our own county, Stolstaft and Pulgas, have successfully implemented off-leash designated areas is truly beyond my comprehension. I think I'm going to run less time than my designated time. Okay, so that's it, but I want to soften that blow because I do feel like that there's a lot of progress made and that reception is being made on the county park system. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chris Johnson. I am a member of the dog off-leash pilot committee and all the previous San Mateo County Parks dog committees going back to, it was spring 2016. So it's been coming up on 4 years now. Myself, Christine, Neil, several other people have been on that committee for 4 years. So the reason I mention that, I'm speaking as a private citizen though, as myself, the experience I've gained from this committee and the things I've learned. The reason I mention the people that have been on there for 4 years is because I would like to say to the Parks Commission, please accept the dog committee's recommendations as a whole, for the reasons that Neil stated. A lot of thought was put into it, a lot of time, a lot of benchmarking, a lot of facts were listened to, and a lot of debate occurred. Those committees were well represented with a diverse group of stakeholders, which for the off-leash pilot group, for the first time also included county parks employees, county parks rangers. So there was another level of stakeholders that included equestrian, mountain bike, the natural resources community, just regular folk like myself, people from the bay side and the coast side. So a lot of thought was given. Pat Brown, the moderator, really did an excellent job of focusing these meetings. So a lot was processed, and the recommendations that came out were given deep thought. And so the 3 that really I don't think are appropriate or should not be recommended, the one about leashing up when you encounter somebody else. This is a pilot program, which means it's a test. And I think this is something that we need to test, whether people are going to be responsible as they have been and as they say they will be. Okay, then the next one is the dog behind you. Again, a dog needs to have that kind of sphere to run around. If they're 100 feet behind you, that's a whole different story. If they're 10 feet or 5 feet, that's, again, a completely different story. And the last one is the Ross Cove Trail, which, Mary, I really respect you and Ed, and I understand that, but it's 80, 100 feet above the beach. Nobody wants that beach off limits to dogs more than the dog people, because we don't want those incidents. And I think it could happen even if that trail was open to off-leash dog walking. Thank you to everybody who's come to these meetings. Thank you to the committee, also to everybody who served for the 4 years. This has been a personal thing for me. As a society, as a culture, we need to figure out how to come together on this issue so that we can address the larger issues in our society. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Those are all the cards that I have. So, yeah, just stand up.
I was just wondering, would the park departments or San Mateo County Parks put signs at Quarry Park and Pillow Point Bluff to designate, like, this is an off-leash pilot site, so that people who are entering these 5% of the off-leash of all the county parks will understand that they're entering now a designated off-leash area. So if they're really afraid of dogs or, want to walk somewhere else, they have tons of coastal trails too. There's tons of coastal trails to get your sunset walk in, and it's flat and it's paved nicely instead of with rubbles and broken glass like the county parks have done to our trails up on Pillow Point Bluff. So if there was designated sign that says this is an off-leash area now for at least pilot for this next coming year, then people will understand that they're entering, just like if they're going to Port Funston or Christie Field or a lot of those areas, they know that they're encountering lots of off-leash dogs from now on. So that might help resolve a lot of the issues.
Thank you.
And also, yes, I foster a lot of senior dogs from Muttville, so most of my dogs are behind me, and they're very slow, or else they're next to me. So I just feel like that language should be changed, because that doesn't encompass all the dogs that are walking up there. Not all dogs are like running around. Most of my dogs are seniors or have medical issues that I rescue. Thank you.
Okay, so come on up. Yeah. All folks who have not yet spoken who have comment, if you could line up by the, maybe this is our last.
My name is Janet, and I attended all but 2 of the dog work group meetings this year, and thank you to all the work group people. I saw how hard that was. As somebody who's a dog advocate and I want increased access in San Mateo County for dogs, it felt to me an awful lot of the time that it was 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and 1 step forward and 2 steps back. They'd seemingly have an agreement when they left one day, come back, and the Parks Department would have rewritten what they heard, and it would be significantly more restrictive. I feel that's what's happened here, despite the fact that the Parks Department was in fact a member of the work group. And when we say that this work group came up with a decision, it included members of the Parks and Recreation group. So to see what they've done today with the additional and new language about the behind you, about the elimination of the Ross Cove Trail, and all the other changes that they've made, it's more restrictive, and yet they were part of the works group. So I find that very frustrating. In addition, with regard to the Ross Cove Trail, I believe, if they're going to ticket you for being off-leash on Ross Cove Trail, they're going to ticket the dogs who go down. So ticketing the dogs that go down is the proper remedy. That's illegal. There'll be signage. It can be adequately addressed with plenty of signage. Dogs, no dogs allowed down here. So I don't see why you should have, in what I would like to see as a comfortable walking area with my dog hanging out with me as we walk along, why I have to leash going up that part of it. It should be a nice long walk. Once you enter the off-leash area, it should all be off-leash. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Don Howes, and I'd like to give a shout out to Christine for all the hard work you've done all these years. Thank you. On a personal level, I think I must be the poster boy for off-leash dog. I think I've been on the Half Moon Bay Review front page a couple of times. And I'm probably the only person that pushes their dog with a jogging stroller on the bluff, right? And when he does walk out of the when he's not in the stroller, he does walk behind me. So that pushing him out in front is really, really tough for a 13-year-old corgi. This particular trail closure or going back on leash, and I'm sorry, Mary, I just don't follow along with this, with your argument. Oh, coming back for round two, huh? At any rate, I heard the argument, right? But the access to the beach is clearly down here near the 17 or 18 post. That's in my memory. I think 15 shows you where the antenna is, and nobody's going to be walking down to the beach up here. If you had some concerns right there, I could understand that, but shutting the whole trail off from this particular intersection just doesn't make sense in my mind. So I think that we should go back to the original dog group or the first recommendation. I don't think it should be overruled by the Parks group on that one. And other than that, that's the only comments that I have. And again, Christine, thank you so very, very much.
Hi there, I am Betsy Caffell, and I live in Moss Beach, and I'm kind of a broken record because I have the same issues. Just wanted to point out that this trail, the Ross Cove Trail, is more than a half a mile long. And as Dawn pointed out, it's these areas, the access to Ross Cove, that are the problem. All this area along here is what is it, 80 to 120 feet in height, and there are no trails down to the beach from there. So it's unfortunate if you want to change this to, an on-leash when it's a viable off-leash option. I think it's just having the proper signage, penalize people for going down on the beach, because I am opposed to having anybody go on the beach because we need to protect the wildlife. And then my other question or issue is the 25-foot distance. It kind of prohibits you to be able to throw a ball for a dog. It's just a very tight restriction, and that's my concern is, just normal dog play makes it very difficult. Thank you.
So if we could take, okay, so each person gets their.
I remembered what I was going to
So
say.
what, yeah, if we could hear from folks who haven't spoken.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Don't lose your train of thought.
Hi, my name's Matt Greenberg, and I just want to first thank everyone on the work group. I was at all but a few of the work group meetings as well. And as I think one of the points that other than Commissioner Miralese might not know is it was very well represented by rangers and park people. So 5 of the 11 people were either rangers or park people. Only 1 was a dog person. So in terms of being a compromise for everyone, remember, this wasn't the beginning to then compromise again and have someone come in and say, okay, we're going to make changes. So that was already filled with infinite compromises. And as pointed out, and then I won't repeat anything, we still lag 50% behind any other county near us in terms of the amount that allow dogs on leash or off leash. Yes. And we're the only place that up until today allows no places off leash. Now the only point I wanted to mention is one that hasn't been mentioned. I started out my career, I was a legislative aide for Ted Lempert in the 3rd District when Quarry Park was created. We established Quarry Park with Kit Dove and Susan Alvaro, and some of you might know these people. And that was established to be a place for dogs and mountain bikes. The reason it was not made a county park initially was because county parks had this ordinance that didn't allow dogs. So to say, oh, now we're going to allow a Quarry Park, that was created to allow dogs and mountain bikes. So it's great to have this jump there, that makes sense. So that's my one point. I met Sam Hertzberg his first few days at work. So I've been there a while back. The other point is the goal of this is to increase over time parks. Basically what you're doing in this move, what the work group did, is just establishing what was already done forever. I know it's mentioned, I mentioned Quarry Park was created in '93 for dogs. I also know that the Pillar Point Bluff has had dogs on it for multiple decades. There's grandchildren that walk there. Thank you very much.
My name's John Dye. I just want to revisit the Ross Cove question a little bit. First, Neil, in that you're recommending going back to the language related to encountering other people on the trails, the dog committee's recommendation was also to allow Ross Cove to be off-leash the entire trail. It seems to me that this is a pilot program. Rather than making the assumption, the worst assumption that that's going to be a problem, it would seem to me as part of the pilot you could make that off-leash and evaluate what problems are experienced, and then decide whether or not it's enough of a problem to make it on-leash. I mean, it was indeed a tragedy last year, but you know, at the end of the day, the trail was off-leash technically at that point anyway. Secondly, if you are, you know, definitely wanting to make it off-leash, there are cross trails here that would enable the access part to be shut down as on-leash only, and you could have a very nice trail, off-leash trail starting here, joining the Ross Cove Trail roughly here. That would work quite nicely. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this really doing anything?
It's to the recording.
Okay. I'm Pat Kramer. I live in Pacifica, and I'm going to confess to all of you who are very knowledgeable that I have not been on any working group, and in fact, this is the first meeting I've attended that has to do with dogs in the county parks. But I want to step back and I want to share with you something that's been on my mind for a number of years. And that is, I think we need to have a comprehensive look at where dogs are allowed to be in any park, whether it is a city park or a county park or a state park or federal land. I don't believe there has been coordination by anybody. As a dog owner, I don't care whether it's a county park or a state park. I care that I'm able to walk my dog. And I think somebody or some organization should make an effort to make some kind of map about where you can and where you can't. And I would guess for San Mateo County, there's a lot of where you can't.
Anyone else for a first comment?
This will be muddled. I look around the room and I see clients of mine whose dogs I walk. I see neighbors, beautiful neighbors. I see friends. I see people I've known for years. What I don't see here are a lot of family members, young families, because they couldn't come tonight. They have children, they have school, they have sports, they've got a dog, and I walk that dog. I walk it here. I walked several dogs here today, and if you flip the map, you'll see where I walked them in the quarry earlier. There are a lot of folks having a great time building new trails with their bikes. Grown men, maybe some of you were them, grown men come at night with their sons, making new trails and all that cleared out brush. Great, we all get along. How you doing? How you doing? We all pass each other. Everybody's happy there with their off-leash dogs and their bikes, etc., etc. Those family members who couldn't make it tonight are so busy they don't have time to walk their dogs. I do that for them. Some other of you in this room also do that for them. Everybody's happy. Everybody's getting along. I pass other dog walkers who've got lots of dogs, walking lots of other dogs. We're all getting along. This is a community that knows each other, that understands each other, that loves each other, actually. I love about 5 of you in this room. I don't want to mention who they are. You promised. I love these family members. I love the children. I love the dogs. Having this experience in my life has helped me grow as a human being. It's helped me form compassion for other animals, for my community, for the environment that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Quite frankly, I would still be a liability to this county, and now I am an asset to this county, and so are all of our family members, including the dogs. God bless some of you who take such good care of your family members. And to those of you who don't get it, that we need our dogs in our lives. We need our children to be happy and healthy. We need our trails to be clean. We need our water to be free of plastic. We need so many things, and we are able to accomplish that amongst ourselves. These laws of yours, not so much, not helpful.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Anyone?
If there's no objection from the crowd to hear the forgotten comment.
You may not want to hear. Okay, I love many of you. You know I walk my dogs up there. You know my husband goes up there all the time.
I'm with them.
But, I know. So I'm going to go back to this. First of all, we live on the coast, many of us. We get to see the ocean all the time, all the time. We are blessed. Every day we're walking on the bluff, seeing that ocean. Not everybody gets to do that. So we're not talking about necessarily people in this room. We're talking about a lot of visitors who come here. They may park here, come up this way. Okay? But seriously, we get the ocean every day. Other people don't. I think, in my heart, people who are not comfortable with dogs off leash, you can have your dog on leash. They should be able to walk on a trail in a semi-wilderness area, look out at that ocean, look out at mavericks, look out at the whales, and enjoy it, and feel comfortable and feel safe. I'm a dog lover, believe me, and I have my dogs off leash up there also, so
I'm going to ask.
I'm sympathizing.
That you, because there were about 30
So-
seconds for that comment.
30 seconds.
Can we
That's
conclude?
what it is, and then people coming up from the parking lot, they're supposed to have their dog off on leash to come up this way. My concern is they'll come up here, they have their dog off leash,
Okay.
ends up off leash, off leash, off leash, they're on the beach.
Thank you. I think
so.
Let's call it.
But
Thank you so
they're
much.
not even on county property.
So,
They're coming up from the
thank
parking
you.
lot.
So it's not a work group meeting, but public. Do we have an additional comment?
I do.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Just remind me of the fines, $100, $200, and $500.
Thanks to the commission, the committee, the director, everything. This has been fantastic. All about compromise. I think that there could be some connection compromise here some way. As they're saying that this is very high. There is a trail down here that a small percentage of the population can make it down, and I think there's another one right in this area. So somehow I think there could be some compromise to include this trail. If not today, or within the next couple of months, some way to connect that.
Great. Any further comment? Oh, come on up. Yeah. If you have comment and have not yet spoken, if you want to line up, that'll help us. If you can please come up.
Come on up.
Come to the mic and we can take questions and we will try to address them either in remarks afterwards or after the meeting.
Thank you. I used to live in Montera, and this is some years ago. We used to walk the dog to the top of the mountain. I don't know what the status of Montera Mountain is. You can walk, we used to be able to walk from Pacifica up to the mountain and down. Is that still off leash, or is that a violation for the county ordinance? Oh, sorry,
Next.
GGNRA, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to just comment on one aspect of this, but first I'd like to, where is Christine? Thank you for all the work you've done. You've persevered all these years. I know it's been really hard, and I appreciate all the work you guys have done. My comment about Ross's Cove and dogs down there, I very strongly believe that it's really not about the leash. It's about a percentage of people that won't follow the rules, and dogs end up in the Fitzgerald Reserve. Now, in the past, we were able to have a cell phone number for the local rangers. The crew here would walk their dogs. You'd see someone with a dog heading down to Ross's Cove. You'd call the ranger. The ranger would say, okay, I'm going to go down there. They'd call in, tell their bosses we're going down to check out Ross's Cove. And deal with folks down there. Now, the other part of that is that's changed. We don't have we have a number we call. It's usually an answering machine. It's too late. In the past, the ranger would call us back. Are they still? Yeah, there. Yeah, they're still there. Okay, I'm on my way. I'm almost there. It's back and forth, and I many times would do that, and I'd be cheering. You know, I'd see Rob go down there, chase the folks out. Now, the other part of that would be really awesome is that you have a real fine. You know, not just a citation that person doesn't go to court and nothing happens. You know, something that's a true deterrent to having a dog on the beach. Word would get around. If you really care about dogs reaching the Fitzgerald Reserve beaches, you need a deterrent, and you need some way for the public to be able to interact with the rangers, because it's a big expanse. And I know that the folks there, they're awesome. They want to do the right thing, and they can't be in that many places at one time. Okay, thanks.
Any further comment? Seeing none, public comments is closed. Thank you. In the interest of time, I hope we commissioners can limit ourselves to just clarifying questions, of which I have a couple. So in terms of what we are asked to act on here today, we are acting on the Parks Department's recommendations. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of, so the Parks Department recommendations are represented by these two maps, with the difference on Pillar Point Bluff being this orange line. That's the only difference. And then on Quarry Park, were there any differences?
Yes, Commissioner. Yeah, I don't have a side-by-side, but the only difference at Quarry is there are trails in the department's recommendation that would be accessible to off-leash recreation, that in the work group's recommendation were on-leash, and
So this is more.
Yeah, this is more.
More, but at Pillar.
At Pillar Point, it's the one trail that would be on-leash instead of off.
Okay, and then to the points about where in the department's recommendation is the language about the dog being in front of you?
Yeah, that's Commissioner, is actually in both the department and the work group's recommendation, and that is in both the department and work group's recommendation. It is voice and sight control.
That's what that voice and sight control means, that the dog is in front of you?
You have to have visual control of your dog. You have to be able to, your dog has to be within your sight. That's correct. And that was in both recommendations.
Okay.
I think that could include behind. You could turn around and look. And
As
that
long-
would be in your sight.
I think for clarification purposes, you have to have, your dog has to be within your sight. So if your dog is behind you and you're looking in front of you, your dog is not in your sight. So that, as a clarification purpose.
Okay, and then, so my understanding from some of the public comment is that is impractical. How does the department respond?
I think it comes down to how you're engaging with your dog, how you're walking your dog. And if you are, and the concern is that if you're walking and your dog's behind you, you have no visual control of your dog. You do not know what your dog is doing. If your dog is behind you and you're walking forward and someone else has been walking behind you and your dog is trying to engage with that person, you now are not able to give the appropriate commands because your dog is not within your sight.
Okay.
Not accurate, sir.
Okay. And then, so, no, the public comment is closed. You guys, this could really get ugly, and I don't want it to. So if we can please just, public comment is closed. Thank you so much. Okay, and so in terms of the piece about the Pillar Point Bluff being created for dogs, can you please explain, the department's perspective if it's different?
Yeah, Commissioner.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Admittedly, I believe you said 1993.
1993, it was created in 1994.
You're little.
I think it was.
But I mean, in terms of now.
That's why it wasn't a county park then, because we were going to make it part of the county parks, but we made it separate because of that.
I don't have any documentation indicating that.
Through the chair, could I make a comment?
we've gotten to this place because the county acquired some parks that allowed dog access. Whereas the county had an ordinance that prohibited dogs in all county parks. So because of the acquisition of those parks, there was a need to either impose that ordinance on the new parks or to change the ordinance and start contemplating making county parks available for dog access. That's the reason that we're here.
Thank you.
And in terms of reacting to the public comments, I love civic engagement. And civic engagement, in my mind, is getting people to have an opinion and have a say-so in what happens in government. So we had an opportunity for people to deliberate over 4 years. And they came up with some recommendations. And the department reviewed those recommendations, and the department is tweaking them a little bit, to present it to the board of to the board of supervisors. Now, it seems to me when this item went to the board of supervisors, the board of supervisors basically asked for two things. One, the department recommend 2 parks that we could pilot an Unleash program, Unleash dog program, and 2, also recommend the possibility of having Off-Leash in those parks. So those are the 2 things that the Board of Supervisors expected, the department to do. And so the San Mateo County Parks Dog Pilot Project Work Group was created. And they've deliberated, and they came up with some specific recommendations. I would like to urge my fellow commissioners, and I would like to stand behind Neil and suggest to the department that the recommendations that need to go to the Board of Supervisors are the recommendations of this group, that was appointed, specifically to work on those 2 requests by the Board of Supervisors. And let's remember that it is what it is. It is a pilot program. And the pilot program is going to reveal a lot of things that are right, and it's going to reveal a lot of things that are wrong. So some of these things that we do fear, we may not have to fear them. And so I would like to really stand behind Neil, because Neil has been involved in this a lot longer than I have. And so I would like to strongly urge the department to just present the recommendations. We still have those 2 parks. We still have off-leash areas and on-leash areas. And so whatever the group came up with, that's what we should present. Understanding that this is a pilot, and over a period of time is going to give us so much information, and we may end up with what the department is recommending, but from direct information that has come from the process.
So, thank you. Clarifying question again then, but the action before us, is it to act on the department's recommendations, the group's recommendations, both? It says dog access policy recommendations. Is it the universal recommendations?
Yes, the recommendation is outlined in the memo.
So these are the work group's recommendations, but that is distinct from the department's recommendations.
The memo provided in the packet states, receive and accept the proposed amendments to the county ordinance code regarding off-leash dog access, pilot programs and policies within San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Areas, and make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to adopt the department's recommendations.
The department's recommendation.
What's being asked of the commission is to adopt a recommendation for the department to bring to the board. Now, to be clear, what's always been made clear to the work group is that the work group would have their recommendation, the department would have their recommendation, and both would be brought forward to the Board of Supervisors. So the department has always intended, regardless of how, from the beginning, before a recommendation was ever made, the department has always intended to present the work group's recommendation and explain to the board what it was and how it was developed, and the department's recommendation and how it was, what it is and how it was developed.
Thank you. And can I ask, in light of the public comment we've heard today, has the department heard anything that would cause a revision in the department's recommendation?
No, I think there's some clarifications that would probably need to be made, most specifically with regards to the site control, but with regards to the recommendation and things like Ross's Cove Trail, no.
Okay.
What was that last comment?
The commissioner asked, the department has not heard something with regards to Ross's Cove Trail that would make the department change its mind.
So there'll continue to be a discrepancy between the work group's recommendation and the department's recommendation, but the board is expected to hear both.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
What about the leashing up anytime you encounter any of them?
That was my next question.
The requirement that you restrain your dog, not necessarily leash, but restrain, will remain in the department's recommendation.
So can we see that part again? Can we
Yeah.
just see what that looks like?
But that, but
Okay.
the department will be informed, the department will inform the board of what the work group had recommended, why the work group recommended it, what the department's recommending, why the department's recommending it,
Sure.
and the board will have to make that decision.
Question though on number 6, because I thought in your question and that there was this requirement for physical restraint for when you encounter anyone, including users with off-leash dogs. But this says approaching or being approached by park users not also engaged in off-leash dogs.
To be clear, so if two people are engaged in an off-leash dog recreation and they are approaching each other, they do not need to restrain their dog.
Okay.
Now, if a person has their dog off leash and they're approaching someone who does not have a dog with them, they do need to restrain their dog.
Okay. Okay. Any further question or comment from commissioners?
I want to make a comment.
Okay.
I feel like after 3 years of going over this, we're actually very, very close. And I would take any of these. But as a Parks Commissioner, I feel like my only job is to take advice and input from the community and give that to the Board of Supervisors. So that's what I have to do. I have to recommend that we make sure that the Board of Supervisors sees the work group's recommendation and the reason for the work group's recommendation. And as far as, I mean, if that's what is going to happen, then I'm all for this. If there's a legal reason that it can't happen the way the community wants it to happen, then I think we can deal with it and we can swing with the punches and we can make this work one way or another. I feel like we're very close though, but there was a lot of public input that went into this policy, and I'd like to see that presented to the Board of Supervisors.
I don't understand the presentation to the board of the two different proposals, and I never understood that to be the case. I always thought that it went through the work group, it went through the Parks and Rec, and one proposal was presented to the Board of Supervisors.
Otherwise, why did we bother?
Do you want me to respond?
We have closed public comment. I think that, though it is important to address this concern, I've been a part of other processes where there is this tension between work group and departmental recommendation. I'd say that is all too common in local politics, as far as I've seen in my not terribly long exposure in this world. And so to clarify, I think the work we can do here today is to clarify what will go from here, which is, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the work group's recommendations will be seen by the board. The department has heard those recommendations and has some modifications that it is proposing, and then ultimately it will be our electeds who decide how that goes.
Commissioner, that's correct.
Okay, so I think we are clear on that. And I do think if we have no other comments from commissioners, if there are further notes or edifications you want to share with commissioners or department afterwards, please feel free to do so. I'm sorry, we do have to move
Public
along.
comment is
I'm sorry, we just have to
closed.
move along.
As a
I'm
member
sorry.
of the work group,
Yes,
can
we
I
have.
ask for one clarification?
I would.
Just
You're
one.
putting me in an uncomfortable position.
Okay, I'm sorry. It'll be super quick.
Aren't they all?
So we've got the work group recommendation, parks recommendation, then we have the ordinance, which is actually the language. What's in your packet for the ordinance doesn't necessarily match, county parks recommendation, as far as I can tell. So, I mean, how does the ordinance, the ordinance is the law. That's what really matters. And so, my fear is that we have these recommendations, but if it's not matching what's in the ordinance, then it's a problem. So,
Okay.
just how does that get addressed?
So noted. I think the answer is the same, which is we will hear the materials presented to the board. We'll capture the work group's recommendations, which include ordinance language. Yes? Neil?
Yes, and the board
then-
supervisors might make changes
Right,
too.
right. And likewise, so that's what will go forward from the board. I think that's what we can clarify here, that there'll be two sets that proceed.
Commissioners and deputy, everybody on the board here, have a burning question. What have you heard from tonight's participants is going to the Board of Supervisors? A lot of concerns have come up. Is this just an exercise of hearing what we want? Or is it going to go somewhere on the record besides the recording?
So that is exactly the work of commissioners now in our motion to advance. So I am looking to commissioners for a motion on this item regarding our dog access policy recommendations. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the work group's recommendation and pass that along to the Board of Supervisors along with the staff report and the changes so that they can see both. I think that's really all we can ask for.
I'd like to second that.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the first motion before we take a vote, which is that and that the presentation of materials to the board as clearly as possible highlight the distinctions between the work group's recommendations and the department's, and that the department, when it goes before the board, make as a deliberate effort to highlight the concerns that we have heard here today about what is practical and what is good for the community at large, including our dog owners.
Thank you,
Uh, before
So and I realize that that is not, that is general and will be subject to interpretation, but I trust the department will make its best faith effort to do so, and also, and so that is my motion. Any further amendment to the motion on the table?
I'm having difficulty because I'm reading through the chair. I'm reading the staff report, and the staff report is very clear as to what the board expects of the department. The Board of Supervisors has already amended the county ordinance. That has already been accomplished. To allow dogs on leash within designated and signed areas at Quarry Park, Miranda Surf, Devil Slide, Trailer, all of those. And from that, the department was to come up with parks in which we could have a pilot program. So that's what the board is waiting for. Of all these parks, which ones are we going to have the on-leash and off-leash pilot program? And so it seems to me the recommendation should really be that we want to have the pilot program in these two parks, Quarry Park and Pillar Point. That's it. We're going to have a pilot program in these two parks, on-leash and off-leash, and provide them with the maps that the subgroup came up with. It seems to me that's what the Board of Supervisors is expecting after the October 2020, after their action on October 23rd. That's what they're expecting. Which two parks, or which parks are we going to have the pilot program in? So we provide them with the names of those parks. And we tell them, okay, on-leash, off-leash, and these are the designated areas in those parks that we're going to have on-leash and off-leash. It seems to me, unless there's something that I'm totally misunderstanding about the Board of Supervisors' expectations.
Commissioner Kelly, do you have a motion associated with your comments?
Yeah, so I would make a motion that we recommend those two parks for the pilot program for both on-leash and off-leash, and that we go along with the project dog pilot project work group recommendation.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Just, I think.
I think, do we have a second to the motion? Okay, so we have one motion on the table with a second and amendment, but not another. So can I take a vote on the motion that has been seconded and amended?
This is on Commissioner Marylis's initial first?
Correct.
Correct. And my second.
And your second and my amendment.
Okay.
All in favor?
Could we do it? Could we read it again, please? Could the clerk read it again, so we know what we're voting on?
Can you reread the motion?
Well, I thought, from what Neil said.
From Neil. Neil, would you be able to repeat your motion?
Well, the park staff report is going to go to the Board of Supervisors. I would like to make sure that the work group report goes to the Board of Supervisors too. So I want to make a motion that along with the staff report, we support the work group's recommendation in terms of language and in terms of trails to go to the Board of Supervisors.
For consideration.
For consideration.
So,
And that was a second by myself.
and my amendment was to ask that the department, when presenting at the board, make it a point to make it clear the distinctions between the work group's recommendations and the department's recommendations, and to try to capture the items of concern here raised at public comment. So that's what we are voting on.
And then we're gonna.
Okay,
Vote.
all clear? All in favor of that motion as amended? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not clear as to what the Board of Supervisors' expectations of us is, so we're not going to vote on the item.
Abstain. So 3 aye, 1 abstention, that carries.
Is the commission recommending one or the other?
No, we are recommending to move both sets of recommendations. That was the motion, to recommend that we move both sets, both the department's recommendation as represented in the staff memo, and also that the board be sure to see the work group's recommendations and to be able to understand as clearly as possible the distinctions between them. So the commission,
Not recommending a plan. They're just presenting to the supervisors for the supervisors to choose.
That's correct.
We're asking the supervisors
We're
to
ask-
consider the work group's recommendations.
And to consider the Parks Department recommendations at
Yeah.
the same time? So
They are going to.
Right.
Yeah, we're an advisory body, so we don't carry the weight of law. We advise the Board of Supervisors. So we're advising the Board of Supervisors to strongly look at the work group's recommendation. And I'll be there at the meeting
including
to
it.
remind them how much public input went into this process.
Thank you, everyone. We have moved through that motion. Thank you all for your attendance in case anybody's all done. We now have item 7.5, the Parks and Recreation Commission presentation to the Board of Supervisors. Commissioner Manna, do you have,
Sorry, Commissioner.
do you want to take an item on?
Don't leave us, through the chair, don't leave us. We love your company.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We got to keep the room filled up.
The night is young.
Okay.
And when you pass it over.
So, in the interest of time and as people move along, my understanding is that we have a special guest here regarding. Right, do we have a motion, one way or another, regarding the approval of the recommendation to increase fees at the marina?
I move that we approve the fee increase.
Second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the work. Okay, so we continued 7.5. We do have, we are over time. Do any of our commissioners have any urgent commissioner updates? Yes.
I do. Congratulations on chairing your first meeting.
Thanks.
Who knew that we would be faced and enduring such a crowd that just had a lot to say.
Lots to say. That's great.
So congratulations.
Thank you for that update, Sam. Anything else? What are you going to do with yourself now that that work group is?
There'll be another one.
No, there's more to come, that's for sure. Okay, so we will make sure that there's time on the next agenda to look carefully at that. I have one, and it's not exactly an update, but on our work plan, I know that one of the items that has my name on it, I think, is to request kind of strategic priorities from the new director, once the new director has established themselves, and now that you've had all of whatever it is, 60 days or something, just asking that on the next agenda that we hear from you about, kind of where you intend to take this department, not necessarily in the form of a full-blown strategic plan, as that would take time, but I think it would help us, gearing up for a budget year next year, and also the foundation and so on, to, just understand where you want to go, and that can help us help you. So let's do that. And we also had the request from last time, as I recall, to do a housing-related item per Commissioner Miralles' request, which we didn't expect to have time for today, and we were correct. But that we would also like to see that on the agenda as well.
Commissioner, through the chair.
Other item.
Yeah, so I know that, so I'll bring strategic goals forward. There's the housing policy, there's the arborist, there's the fish and game policy,
Right.
and there's
Supposed to be connecting with
Pump track.
and there's the pump track issue that was discussed earlier that I'd like to bring to the commission, which, so as you can tell, there's most certainly more items than we have time for. So the department will do its best to kind of prioritize these based on timing of what's occurring and bring that forward. But we will absolutely bring a full agenda to you in April.
Great.
Through the chair, pardon my ignorance, what's pump track?
I'll let Neil explain. Coastal.
What's pump track?
A pump track is a bicycle track in dirt that kids or adults ride around and go over jumps.
Okay.
That's basically what it is, and some kids put in an illegal one, kind of pressing the issue on Parks land. And even more people than showed up for this meeting showed up for a pump track meeting at the Mid-Coast Council. And Nicholas was there and did very, very well, and promised to work on a pump track in another location, that maybe the location the kids put it in, because they put it in a little hidey hole, wasn't the right location, but they would do it the right way with, environmental impact studies and, do it the right way.
Okay.
So yeah, Nicholas handled that well.
Very helpful, thank you.
And that will come back to us at some point.
Very helpful, thank you. I was just wondering, pump track.
Yeah.
Commissioner, when I bring it back, I'll be happy to include a video.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Can it be your dog?
A legal one? A legal one?
Of course, of course.
All right. Any other comments on this one? Seeing none, I think that's our last item. Items for future. Oh, I'm sorry. So we were talking about item 9 there, in combination with item 8.1. I hope that's okay. They're all discussion items. A motion to adjourn. Item 10.
Gladly seconded.
And we are good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Congratulations.
Please come again, come again. We feel lonely talking to empty